Why, hello there. Welcome to Smart Aspirations with Justin Huff. Sit back, chill out, and go on a journey around the world. Around the world. Justin will discuss tales of hope, discovery, and general irreverence with some of the most dynamic personalities in the travel business. Remember, we do cool shit, and so can you.
Hey everybody, welcome to the very first episode of Smart Aspirations with Justin Huff for 2021. We are thrilled and honored to have my old friend Jan Scholtz join us from Sabi Sabi in South Africa. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Hey Justin, great to be here. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, it looks like you're enjoying some posh accommodations there in the background.
Virtually, yes. I'm unfortunately coming to you out of my office in Joburg at home, but my heart is very much in the bush. I can tell you that.
With the accommodations,
I'm actually heading down there on Friday, and I can't wait.
Oh, cool, man! Cool, man.
Yeah.
A little escape in the brief moment of insanity that we're all experiencing right now.
Indeed. Getting that bush fix.
Right. And so a lot of people that are tuning into this is kind of like this might be their first safari consideration ever. And one of the things that I love about your lodges and your camps in the Sabi Sabi Game Reserve is it's such an amazing place to get that first safari experience. Not only is the wildlife phenomenal, but you've got all these incredible creature comforts. But stepping back a little bit, why don't you tell the guests a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got to work into the safari business?
Great. Well, I'm obviously from my accent, you can judge that I'm a South African and born and bred. Yeah.
Not French?
Thank goodness not. No, we you know what, we grew up in South Africa, loving the bush, going on safaris with from a very early age, and it's always been something that I've been passionate about. And I studied tourism management eventually, and quite by chance, met up with my boss at a function, and we hit it off, and I've been with Sabi Sabi for 12 years now.
Oh my God. Yeah,
international and domestic sales. I actually counted the other day. I've been to the States 26 times in these 12 years.
That's mental.
And
when I first started getting cracking in this business 12 years ago, you were there. So yeah, I mean, that says something, man. That's amazing.
We still did a trip up to Napa on one Sunday afternoon, if I'm not mistaken.
Fun. Yeah, that was
indeed.
A South African, 2 Americans, and a Namibian go trudging around in Napa Valley. So yeah, we like to have a little bit of fun in the end.
Fair to say we drank some wine. Just
a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah. But you know what? I'm probably one of the most privileged people in this industry. I represent a brand that is now 42 years old. One of the most established safari operations in Africa, and it's 12 years and it never gets old. There's always something new, always something awesome happening, or big disasters like we have this year or had in 2020. It's a mixed bag.
Damn it, we're still here.
We're still here. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it's a dream job going out and representing Africa. People often think that we just talk about our own lodges and our own beds and the experience in our own properties, but Africa is so varied, and the average traveler has no idea what's within the continent. And being able to explain to people what Cape Town's all about, what South Africa is all about, Botswana, Namibia, even our neighboring countries. It's phenomenal. It's being an ambassador for the most awesome continent.
Well, it's such a huge continent that a lot of people seem to misunderstand sometimes. And even just within South Africa alone, that's a massive country in different environments in the bush, from the Northern Cape to where you guys are in the Bushveld, Cape Town, and the Eastern Cape. I mean, it's just massively, drastically different. But you guys, we're not here to
Yeah.
talk about that. We're here to talk about the Sabi Sands. So I had my first safari experience ever in the Sabi Sands in this business, and that was before I dedicated, you know, a good 6 years of my life solely focused on the Sabi Sands and the African safaris. And it just, when you see on your first game drive, my first sighting happened to be an impala, which is like the most non-eventful thing, you know, after there. But to the uninitiated, when you see an impala on a drive from the airstrip into the lodge, it's just like, oh my God, this is different. You know, you can.
It's happened,
man. It's like you can see the Taj Mahal, you can see, you know, Machu Picchu. Those buildings are fixed buildings; they're not going anywhere. You know, but when you're on a safari, it's totally immersive. And the Sabi Sands, talk to me a little bit about, I mean, I know about it, but I want guests to really understand how cool this place is, especially for a first-time safari. Tell me about the Sabi Sands in the greater Kruger area, kind of like an overview 101.
Great. You know what, just to take things back a little bit,
Sure.
Most folks, obviously, when you think about safaris in South Africa, think about the Kruger National Park.
Yeah,
totally. And we're part of the greater Kruger National Park. So basically what happened is Kruger Park, well, think Kruger Park, think Yellowstone, right? It's a massive park. Huge. It's the size of Belgium. And wow. it offers pretty much everything. It offers camping. It offers, you know, people with their RVs, basic accommodation to luxury accommodation. And towards the 70s, 80s, quite a few privately owned game reserves developed around the outside of the Kruger National Park. And one of those obviously being Sabi Sabi and the Sabi Sand private game reserve.
Right.
And towards the mid 90s or early 90s, the fences between ourselves and the Kruger National Park were actually dropped in an effort to increase the size of the park, encourage biodiversity, allowing animals to move around freely, and the private game reserves are very much, catered to the international traveler, where you have a much more exclusive experience. We are 18,000 acres, and on that 18,000 acres, you could be one of 6 guests, or you could be one of 20 guests. You know,
it's a huge tract of land too.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a much more exclusive experience, if I can put it that way, as opposed to going into the Kruger Park, into the national park itself. To give you an example, my wife and I love Kruger. We go there all the time. But you could come across the Pride of Lions and have 30 vehicles parked around them. Everybody trying to get a photo.
That's the downside.
Whereas on the private game reserves like ourselves, you're going to be one of a maximum of 3 vehicles in that sighting, with a professional guide, professional tracker, really explaining everything to you. So it's just the most phenomenal place. The biodiversity down there is incredible. We have great water supply, so there's there's no migration, so the animals stick around year round. And if you're ever looking for a place to see leopard, there's no better place in Africa. No better place in Africa. My personal record's 4 leopards on one safari in one afternoon in 3 hours.
4 leopards in one safari.
That's 2 of them were busy mating, so technically three sightings. But it counts. It counts absolutely. But it's I think there's no better place to go on your first safari than to a private game reserve like ours. Where you really are, you want for nothing. The accommodation, the service, the food, everything is absolute world class. And you're really there to see the animals. And going out on an open safari vehicle, a professional ranger, really guiding you throughout the bush, tracking animals, reading the bush, talking to you about the trees, the birds, the bees, the insects, all of it, and not just the big 5. That really just, if I always give this example to people, but it's amazing to see how many of our guests arrive at a place like Sabi Sabi and say, we're here, we've saved our whole lives, or we've traveled the whole world, we left Africa to the very end, and we're here for one safari, just to tick the box. And we see those same guests the year after. We see the family coming with, and once you've got that African fever, it's very, very difficult to get it out of your.
It's impossible. In case in point to that, when I was at Earth Lodge, and this is the first time I went to Earth Lodge was 2000, I want to say 13. So holy wow, that's a while ago. But still, it was right after you guys did a refurb there, and there was a guest that she's like, "Oh, this is like my 5th safari coming here," and she was from Europe, and it was just amazing to she knew the guides, she knew the staff, and it just really becomes like this family experience that you look forward to doing time after time, and we were just catching up before the podcast and just talking about it briefly. It never gets old. I mean, every day is totally different. You never know what you're going to see. And another thing that I love about the Sabi Sands is just that, I mean, oh my God, you can see lion, leopard. It's everything is there. And like literally everything is there. And it's totally insane. And it's not
absolutely uncommon
to see the big 5 on one single game drive if you're super lucky. I mean,
it happens. It isn't. So. Yeah. It isn't. I mean, it's the really cool thing about having guests coming back, time and time again, is that you also see how their safari experience changes over the years. So initially it's big 5, everybody wants to tick the list, get the leopard shot, get the lion shot. And then after their 2nd or 3rd visit, it's birding, it's tree safaris, it's insects, safaris. It's amazing to see how our guests just develop their passion for the bush. It's again, like I said, it's impossible to get that safari fever out of you.
Yeah, you're coming into like you want to tick off the big ones, and then it's like even on the last day, you'd be like, oh, how can I identify a marula tree compared to like, I don't know, Jackleberry tree or something like that. And people really nerd out on that stuff. And with the birding, nobody's like born a birder. They kind of like become birders over time. But dude, when you're out there in the bush and you see your first lilac-breasted roller, like just kind of like staring back at you, it's a gorgeous bird. So I mean, you definitely learn to appreciate everything that's out there, and again, that's why a professional guide. So we actually train all of our guides in-house. Okay.
It doesn't matter where these guys come from, doesn't matter how much experience they have. They go through our training program, our way of doing safaris.
Right.
And the great thing about that is that you can really develop your guides to, again, not just be big 5 jockeys, but to really show the guests everything that's out there, and offer a full holistic safari experience. Walking safaris. South Africa's never been really known for its walking safaris. It's always been a big Zambian thing, but it's something that's developed tremendously over the last 4 or 5 years. Is really getting out there on foot and seeing the bush from a totally different perspective.
I did a walking
and again, that's only
with one of your rangers. That was unbelievable. You learn about how some of the plants actually poison the ground around it so it can protect itself, and and I suppose I can say this, there was he taught me about this old tradition that guys have, the guys have down there, and you take like an impala dropping and you spit it. Yeah, and we did it.
Just don't get a wet one. Get one that's been in the sun at least a day.
It was dry. It was totally dry.
Good.
What is that? If I don't, do you know what I'm talking about?
It's a game. You see who can spit the it's a tiny little dropping. It's not huge, and they harden up quite a bit. And it's literally just to see who's the man who can spit it the furthest.
That's great. Never have I ever.
Well, the great thing is once you've done that, you can wash it down with a nice amarula or
there you go.
Absolutely.
There you go. Yeah, the sundowners there are perfect for that. But so I mean, backing off a little bit about the reserve itself, you have some of the most incredible luxury accommodations in this business, spanning the entire continent of Africa, and you should be super proud of that. Tell me, and we'll put up some images and everything as you talk through the lodges. Talk to me about the properties that are in Sabi Sabi and the different styles of accommodation.
So we, Justin, you've seen them obviously firsthand. But,
Yes.
Our lodges follow a design philosophy of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And we have 4 lodges that fall into those categories. And basically what it means is our first lodge, Salati Camp, is a slightly more classical style of lodge. We'll see some memorabilia from the old railroad era, exploring, pioneering vintage Africa. Yet, of course, with a contemporary twist to it. 7 suites, 14 guests maximum. So it's a really nice, small and intimate lodge, with the most beautiful stone-carved bathtubs outside, ball and claw baths in the suite. So it's a very classical property. Little Bush and Bush Lodge are 2 lodges that form part of our today feel, with Little Bush being a really, really small lodge, 6 suites, 12 guests maximum.
I love that little lodge.
It's one of those places where people will literally postpone their trip by 2 months so that they can actually get a suite there.
No kidding.
It's an incredibly popular lodge, and it's built in a riverine forest overlooking a dry riverbed. You have complete privacy around your suite. Beautiful hot tub on your deck.
Yes.
The amount of champagne and rose pebbles that we go through in that lodge is ridiculous. All the honeymooners and the special anniversary trips, etc., etc. So it's a great option, and it's also what we've seen over the years, because it is so small. We've seen a lot of families or small groups booking out the entire lodge and using it as a private villa. It's a great alternative.
Yeah,
great
absolutely.
Option
Especially
for doing
now.
that. Yeah, absolutely. And then, Justin, when you and I started, I mean, we probably send 3 kids to Africa every year, and now family travel is absolutely massive, or it was at least pre-pandemic.
It's not going away either.
It isn't. No, definitely not. And again, when I started at Sabi Sabi, we didn't really offer much to families, and over the years, of course, our entire management team have all had kids, and our owners have had grandkids. And with that, Bush Lodge has changed over the years to become our family-friendly lodge. And we accommodate kids from all ages there. The youngest that I believe we had there was 9 months old, all the way through to 99 years old. So it's very much a family-orientated lodge. We've got a great kids club.
You've got that really cool kids club right in the center.
The Elephant Center. So there's a full-time teacher at the lodge. The kids do art projects, ranger training, kids drives. It's all about fun and games in the African bush. No TVs, no PlayStations. I'm the father of a 5-year-old, and we took Zara, my daughter, there about 2 years ago, and I mean, we literally didn't see her all day. She came back all painted up and, super high on all of the fruit and stuff that they ate throughout the day. But just kids being kids, and it's also been amazing to see how many families arrive there, and mom and dad just want to go to the spa and, drop the kids off at the Elephant Center. And then you find mom and dad 4 hours later, still at the Elephant Center, painting, going crazy, running around, on the water slide, whatever, and not having gone to the spa, but actually reconnecting with their kids and with their families. Again, there's just no better place than Africa to reconnect with your kids. There's no boring museums to drag them to.
Kicking
it's
and screaming.
just exciting safaris all the time.
Yes. Well, and it's just, you have the flexibility to do what you want during the day. I mean, if the kids are having more fun at the Elephant Center, or just enjoying being with their I mean, are they specialists trained in with educating children and watching after children, or are they guides? How does that work?
Yeah, so we've got a full-time qualified teacher there. So, again, she sort of runs the show. The guides get stuck in. I'll tell you the story. We I had a couple of years ago, I had one of my Spanish clients or agents come and stay with us with his son. And his son, kids, rangers are like superheroes, right?
Seriously.
They just need a cape. That's pretty much all they need.
Agreed.
And to this day, Mariano's son still writes to Bethwell, his ranger. And it's probably about 5 years later, and he still gets a Christmas card and everything. So again, the guys connect on a completely different level, and
that's awesome.
Lifelong friendships are made there. Really cool. These rangers, I promise you, they get letters from all over the world, Spain, Japan, you name it. It's,
yeah. Well, no, it's just one of those incredible, memorable experiences, and the bond that you form, and the element of trust and things that you have with these guys. It's crazy, and I just love having that, especially now when you're going to see a lot more multi-generational travel coming your way, and it's you've got grandma and grandpa, a couple of and their children with their grandchildren and everything like that. And I think what better way, I mean, even to have a camp all to yourself, and to just maximize that exclusivity and privacy that people are really wanting to get. And when you add in the ability of these rangers to really take after children and educate them, I mean, that's huge. Huge.
Absolutely. It wasn't around when we were kids, eh?
No. God, no.
Our family holidays used to be 2 weeks camping, next to the ocean. That was it.
Right. No, I did fishing and crab trapping stuff with my dad. That was ours. It definitely wasn't a luxury safari, but hey.
No, definitely not. Kids are spoiled nowadays. Very lucky.
As they should be. The generation is supposed to improve generation after generation. So
absolutely.
For somebody that's not been on a game drive or experienced something like this, walk me through like a typical day on safari from sunrise to sunset. How does it work?
Well, there's no late start in Africa. So you need to be prepared for some late nights and some early mornings.
Yes.
Typically you'll have a wake up call depending on the time of year. It's summer here at the moment, so we'll talk about the summer schedule. But about 5:30 in the morning, you'll get a nice knock on your door, or a telephone call, whichever you prefer. The ranger will knock until you actually respond. And then guests are obviously welcome to make their way through to the lodge at a relatively leisurely pace. Come through, have a beautiful cup of coffee, croissant, some rusks, and then head out on safari while the day, before the day really starts. It's still nice and cool. It's not too hot, and the animals are very active still in the early morning hours. And typical safari is about 3 hours, so it's a long time that you're spending out there on the vehicle. And again, you do, especially in our winter time. When you're on an open vehicle and it's 8 degrees Celsius with a wind chill factor of -2,
right?
You tend to wake up very quickly.
The wildlife's great, man.
Yeah, wildlife's great, absolutely. And we've got blankets and hot water bottles on the vehicles and everything, so you're very comfortable still. But during your safari, you're going to stop for a nice cup of coffee along the way. Our rangers have actually now started. So we start buying. What do you call it? Coffee in a little bag.
There you go.
But your ranger will actually take out there we go, instant coffee. And your ranger now actually takes out beans that have been roasted the previous night, grinds up your beans, makes you a beautiful filter coffee right there in the bush. So really, really good cup of coffee. And what's also great is with our ranger team, they'll keep an eye out and an ear out during the night. It's amazing how far sound travels, but it's also amazing how well these guys can pinpoint where that sound came from.
Oh, seriously.
So they'll know first thing in the morning, listen, if the lions were heard, 5 kilometers down the road, let's go check that out right now. Let's see if we can find the lions.
Right.
And you might spend half the morning tracking lions, but there's no bigger reward than actually finding those lions.
Oh, seriously.
Maybe on a kill, who knows? And again, like you said earlier, every safari is different. You never know what the next moment's going to hold.
Well, yeah.
So,
like when I was there, a million years ago, it seems like Yeah, our guide we were tracking leopard, and because everybody in the thing wanted to see a leopard. There was like there was a couple from Brazil that was like, they were just dropping in for a couple of days before they went off to like the Maldives. And then there was like me, and I was there for, with my ex-wife. But everybody wanted to see leopard, and there was like a lot of pressure on this guide to find this leopard. And so we're driving around for 2 days looking for this thing. And, he pulls up and stops the engine, and he's just like, smell that. It's buttered popcorn. And everybody's like, that smells like buttered popcorn. It smells like buttered popcorn. And then he kind of like looks at us and gives us like this Jurassic Park kind of a look, and he's like, leopard urine. We're getting close. But we finally saw the thing at the end of the day, and it was just like the biggest reward. Everybody was chuffed, and it was just like, it was like the Rangers were like going around people at dinner afterwards, giving high fives, and it was just, it was mental. It was mental.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's again, a good ranger builds that experience, and builds your anticipation. But you know what, Justin, just listening to that story, spending a day or maybe 2 days finding that leopard. That's why the average stay should never be less than 3 nights. No. You should never, ever, ever book yourself into one of these places for less than 3 nights. Give yourself time to experience the bush, find that leopard, because they don't always fall out of trees, every day. You sometimes have to work for it. And again, every drive is different. You could have a drive where you pop into, you bump into the big 5 within 2 hours. Or you could have a drive where you see a couple of impala and some giraffe and a zebra. That's it. It's very much the luck of the draw, and being there, spending enough time on safari is absolutely key. Absolutely.
And to your point, as you know this better than anybody, most Americans were these big bucket list tickers, and we don't have all this time on our hands. And so you have these 2-3 night stops everywhere you go. And you spend so much time in transit, and by the time you're done with your trip, you're like, wow, we literally spent 4 days just traveling around. And I think that, now that once we get out of where we are right now as travelers, I think you're going to see longer stays and shorter. Just you'll have somebody Cape Town, Sabi Sands, instead of Cape Town, 3 places in Sabi Sands, Victoria Falls, Botswana in like 2 weeks. I think you're just going to see a really more focused trip with a hell of a lot more just emphasis on just slowing down, chilling out, and just kind of letting it all happen. So
I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. We're already seeing it. Folks who are booking going forward are booking longer stays and doing fewer stops along the way. Yeah, absolutely. Just relax, and you're staying in the most amazing 5-star lodge with a bathtub that takes half an hour to fill up. It's enjoy it. Pour a glass of champagne and line your bathtub and read a book, or spend the afternoon on your deck outside of your suite, and just immerse yourself in where you are.
Yeah, there's no pressure. And speaking of accommodations, you'll have to forgive me, as I got so excited about talking about what a typical day on safari was. I completely overlooked Earth Lodge, which is
I was looking for an opportunity to circle back to that.
Yeah. So I got you, man. I just saved it. So, all right. So we've talked about Bush Camp. We talked about Little Bush Camp. We talked about Saletti Camp. Your flagship is Earth Lodge. Yeah. That's where I stayed. It's unbelievable. Tell me about it.
So it's the lodge that you can see sort of part of it behind me here. Yes. Earth Lodge is unlike anything else that's in the African bush. The design of the lodge is very contemporary, slightly minimalist.
Yeah.
And yet it's a place that has the most amazing earthy feel to it, with textured walls to represent an African mud hut. You'll see a lot of wood, a lot of water, a lot of stone throughout the lodge. And the whole idea behind it was to bring you as close as possible to the earth. And the lodge was pretty much built on the side of a little hill. We call it a koppie in South Africa. Yeah. There isn't a good translation for
it's
that.
A little hill.
Yeah, a little hill. And we basically excavated the hill, built the lodge there, and then we filled in the ground in between the suites and to the back of the suites. So that the lodge pretty much forms part of the natural flow of the environment.
Yeah.
So as you arrive, you can't actually see the lodge at all. You arrive and you see the sign and you think, where on earth am I? And you follow, I call it the yellow brick road, sort of downhill.
Good way to put it.
And you get to these beautiful big wooden doors that the guys open up, and you literally walk into the view that you can see behind you here. And the whole African bush just opens up right in front of you.
Yeah.
It's a lodge. I guess it's a lodge for a more sophisticated traveler. It's a lodge for someone who's looking for a very unique setting, beautiful food, beautiful wines. The food is phenomenal. Beautiful South African cuisine, of course, on the menu, presented like you would have in the best restaurants in the US or in Europe. Although not like Europe, because you actually get a man-sized portion as opposed to European portions.
Yeah.
And and the wine selection here is insane. I mean, we have 6,500 bottles of South African wine in our cellar.
And this cellar is gorgeous. You can do. We did a private dinner down there. That was awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. It's one of the most magical places on the reserve. And I also think it's something, you talked earlier about first-time visitors to Africa. Mm-hmm. I think it's something that people don't always realize is that South Africa offers phenomenal cuisine, Absolutely. Amazing wines. We purposefully only buy wine from small family boutique estates as opposed to from all the big name estates. And we always get feedback on the food, whether it be at Sabi Sabi or in Cape Town or in Joburg.
Right.
The food feedback on South Africa is always phenomenal.
Well, if you think about the Cape Dutch and the French Huguenot and like all of and the British and the traditional cuisine that was already there in the first place, I mean, you've got one of the best culinary scenes, to be honest, in the world. And it's not just Cape Town. This goes all over. I mean, it's one thing I loved about Earth Lodge too is the chef, South African guy, came out and he presented the menu every night, and and he talked about accommodating vegan diets, gluten-free diets, and you guys can do everything. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's
don't go on a safari to lose weight.
No, you don't. No, there should be a health warning on part of the disclaimer should be that you will gain weight without a doubt.
It's worth every pound. Yeah.
Oh man, it's so funny. I host quite a few agents throughout the year, or typically do, and it's so funny. Like on day 2, everybody's like, "Yeah, we're having breakfast. We're gonna skip lunch, and we'll see you guys for high tea." Everybody's there for lunch again. And then one guy orders the dessert, so everybody orders the dessert. You will gain weight. You will gain
5 nights. And let's do 2 desserts a day, so 10 desserts on a 5-night stay, maybe. Okay,
easily. Yeah. Mix in some wine and some beers, and it's.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? And if you were, do people mix it? Do they ever stay in Earth Lodge for 2 nights, or stay at like Salati Camp for 2 nights, and then go and like upgrade to Earth Lodge at the end? Did they ever do that?
Every now and then we do have guests who do that, especially if they're booking through someone like you who's actually been and what you're talking about.
I appreciate it.
Well, absolutely. But it's it's a great combination. Doing 2 nights in a slightly more classical style of lodge, and then moving over to Earth Lodge with a more contemporary style. It's a really cool combination, and what will typically happen is your ranger will move with you. So you're not going to start afresh again with a new ranger. We'll do our best to actually move the ranger with you so that you have that consistency in your safari experience.
And I think you just touched on a great subject, and this kind of further reinforces the importance of a long stay. It's so hard for a ranger and a guide to adapt to your personality and interests and just overall just enthusiasm over a 2-night stay or barely even a 3-night stay. And I think that, once they figure out what really gets you going, they can really open up an entire new world to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's again, I'm repeating myself now, but it's live in that moment, live where you are, enjoy where you are. Don't just rush it. It's not a Marriott. It's a life-changing experience.
Yeah, totally.
Not to knock Marriott at all. I'm a Marriott loyalty member myself.
Same here. Yeah. Or different experience. City stays.
Different experience
versus the safaris. Totally different. Totally
absolutely.
different.
Absolutely.
No, I'll
absolutely.
take a nice Marriott any day for sure.
Me too.
Well, we're not supposed to date podcast, but I think it's really important to do that for this time. So right now we're in January 2021, and we're not out of this by any means of the sense yet. South Africa is currently open. What can guests expect in terms of arriving at the border, coming into South Africa, and traveling around?
So we South Africa's, as with the rest of the world, we're obviously to a degree figuring out what works and what doesn't work with lockdowns, etc.
Right.
But our borders are open. Guests, all that you need to arrive here is obviously the US and Canada is obviously a visa-free entry, so you guys don't need any visas, and you need a negative PCR test that's no older than 72 hours prior to arrival. The airport should be seamless because, like most airports throughout the world, it's relatively quiet at the moment.
Yeah.
And the great thing is, coming in from, I don't think there are any direct flights out of the States at the moment. But coming in from Europe, you land in the morning and you can still connect through to the bush and be in the bush in time for lunch on the same day. In our lodges, we obviously, all throughout the airports and everywhere that you go, pretty much, you'll obviously see the sanitizing stations.
Yes.
Mask wearing is enforceable by law in South Africa at the moment. So any public spaces, you do need to wear a mask, like the airport or on a bus or a train.
Yeah.
And then obviously, once you arrive in the bush, our staff will all have their masks on, because obviously our staff, their health and safety is our number one priority. So our staff will be masked throughout, but our guests, of course, will only be required to wear a mask at this stage because of the laws the way they are in the public areas.
Right.
But once you're out on safari, once you are in your suite, moving around, obviously you're more than welcome to move around freely and breathe fresh air. And then obviously we've Justin, we've tried to make these health protocols as unintrusive as possible on our guests. So, in the beginning, when we saw these regulations coming out, they were absolutely ridiculous and completely unenforceable in the bush.
Right.
And we figured it out over the last couple of months, what does work in the bush, what doesn't work. For example, we're only operating our lodges at 50% capacity at the moment.
Okay.
So once guests check out, that suite stands empty for 48 hours before we go in and we do it clean. The great thing about that is we can clean it like we regularly clean it, and we don't need to use harsh chemicals or anything that's not great for the environment, because we are at the end of the day, we are in a pristine wilderness environment.
Sure.
So just by being smarter, we've managed to make life a lot easier for us and for our guests, of course, as unintrusive as possible.
That's awesome. I mean, safety is the new luxury, to be honest, and you can't just shrug it off. I mean, I know sometimes we get desensitized in the travel business because we travel so often, but that's not the case for most clients, and it's so important. And it's just I'm glad to see that you guys are on top of that for sure.
No, absolutely. It's it's the new normal for now, and again, it's everybody's health and safety is important to us, but we also want our guests to have the most mind-blowing experience possible. And I think everybody's ready. I mean, I've been at home since March last year.
Right. Oh,
this is the longest I've been home in my adult life. So I'm ready to start traveling again. And I'm pretty sure that your listeners and your clients are feeling the same. You know,
there's so pent up demand, and I think that, you know, you've got people that had to not have their 2020 plans, obviously. So I think that this next go around, once the shroud is, I think it's lifted a little bit, but, you know, once it's totally lifted, there's going to be a massive spike in demand, and people are going to be doing a lot more cooler. They're not going to be doing, you know, the typical, no offense to Paris, but, you know, going to the Eiffel Tower or something like that. This is going to be a little bit more meaningful, I think. So Safari definitely ticks that list. Oh,
definitely. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, I want to thank you for coming on. And you've been you know, super positive, just, you know, inspiration for things to come. And I'm really, really excited that you guys are doing well, that everybody's keeping safe. And it's just an awesome experience, especially if you haven't been on a safari before. This is amazing. If you have been on a safari before, this is still amazing. I mean, you're going to see, oh my God, just, okay. I think we did, on one afternoon, I think we had something like, I want to say that this is accurate, around 12 white rhino at one time. I mean, it's just nice. Insane. You know, it's totally insane. My pictures were mind blowing at the time. Actually, last thing, and then I'll shut up and end the show. But I like, first safari, I felt like such an amateur when I was in this game drive, because other people had like proper camera kits, like an SLR, and I had like this little shitty little, you know, digital camera that was probably like, you know, $50 at Walmart, you know. And at the time when I came, which is fine for like, at the time for like Budapest, not so much for safari. But yeah, I got the inspiration and just totally got like a proper kit for the next time. But
absolutely, you know, the irony of that is that, I mean, I went through exactly the same, and also got myself a really nice Nikon or Nikon, like you guys say. And now these new telephones actually, like,
take better
photos
pictures.
are almost as good or even better. Yeah. So all you really need is your iPhone or your Samsung, and off you go.
That's a good point. It's a good point. But all right, man, it's great to see you. Great to catch up. You're awesome. Yeah, man. Yeah, we'll have to do this again for sure.
Absolutely. Justin, thank you so much. And it's great to see that you're keeping healthy and sane. And hopefully we'll meet up in Africa next time around.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. And I'll leave the contact info right here for inquiries. And if you've liked the video, please give us a subscribe, give the video a like. We'd love to hear from you in the comment section as well. And have a great day doing whatever it is you do, man.
Thank you. Cheers.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to Smart Aspirations. Justin Huff is the manager of Swaggy Swan Travel. For all travel-related inquiries, please visit www.swaggyswan.com. That's www.swaggyswan.com. And click inquiries. Have a stupendous day, and we'll see you next week.